Chapter 55, The Huangbo Family, 3. Those who collapsed while standing were especially precarious. The blue-ranked masters who seemed momentarily dazed quickly caught their juniors' bodies. Internal energy barriers like protective energy arise through mental focus. When consciousness is lost, even white-rank masters were no different from third-rate warriors. The external cultivation realm of diamond indestructibility, where the entire body becomes as hard as diamond, only existed in legends. Bewilderment lingered on the faces of blue-ranked masters laying down their juniors. It's sound attack. How can he do that? Such precise true chi. He strangely applied power enhancement of bladed weapons. At that level it's in the realm of chance. Their discussion already showed insight into the essence of martial arts. This was the realm of Desolate Sect's blue rank. They said those with overflowing talent from their hometown dedicated their lives to martial arts. They were ones who would be called masters anywhere in the vast martial world. Understanding the principles of martial arts came first. Whether envy or admiration came after. Eventually the blue-ranked masters began discussing among themselves. It's a martial art I've never heard of. To penetrate white rank's protective energy. Their Desolate Sect white rank, so it only led to fainting. It would show truly overwhelming aspects. Especially in group battles without masters of equal rank. Though there would be various limitations, the advantage is clear. Causing damage to allies is a problem. Isn't it worth trying in solo missions? They didn't hesitate to discuss martial arts even before the squad leaders. They only spoke facts. In Desolate Sect, no one could criticize this. It seems to consume considerable internal energy. The Annihilation Team leader opened his mouth while staring at Zhong Yunshin. Zhong Yunshin answered with a silent bow. He wasn't wrong. Loading radiating true chi while raising sword sound was a technique impossible with ordinary perception. The sword technique required extreme concentration. Even Zhong Yunshin felt considerable fatigue from one casting. Such precise true chi operation. Of course. It would be hard to use suddenly in chaotic battles. It would be good to unleash when starting a fight. It would also have the effect of dampening morale. He was already giving advice. He seemed very interested. Even so, we can't send the lightning genius alone. The mission isn't light either. It was the Azure Sky Squad leader who was stroking his chin while looking at Zhong Yunshin. The Annihilation Team leader nodded. I'll attach 2 more. The mission is to strike the Huangbo branch family in Pinyin County of Jinan. Any volunteers? Many raised their hands in that moment. It seemed easily 30 people. Not just Radiant Demon Wing, but volunteers came from both Annihilation Team and Azure Sky Squad. It was sword sound attack. Perhaps they wanted to see the unheard-of martial art with their own eyes in actual combat. Several blue-ranked masters smiled awkwardly. Radiant Demon Wing would be better. It's right for Master Ma to decide. There are none besides Radiant Demon Group who have matched movements. It would be good to attach Bewitching Sword Demon and Blue-Eyed Demon Sword. Do as you wish. Then, the Annihilation Team leader's pitch-black gleaming eyes turned to Zhong Yunshin. Show that it wasn't recklessness. It's a matter of proving with martial might. So none will criticize you as rash. He said while turning around. The hem of his dark robe fluttered without lingering. Thank you for your guidance. Zhong Yunshin, putting away the Northern Light sword, gave a cupped fist salute toward the seniors, including the various squad leaders. Where did you learn it? There's no such martial art at the main sect. Is it a secret technique of the Desolate Sect Ma family? It was when blue-ranked masters were approaching with faces full of curiosity. Ma Jin's body blocked them. He led Zhong Yunshin to move to another place. Several seniors stopped with regretful expressions. It was a situation where it was revealed that Desolate Sect Ma family blood flowed in Zhong Yunshin's body due to the coming-of-age ceremony. No one saw it as strange. Ma Jin, who had come to the entrance of the mountain range connected to the plain, asked quietly. That sound attack. Did you create it? Yes. Zhong Yunshin, who stood calmly, answered. The scar on Ma Jin's face twitched. Why didn't you say so earlier? What martial artist goes around revealing all their personal martial arts? The person themselves would likely end up dying away from home after being countered. This time I had no choice. I hadn't thought it through either. You're not wrong. Did you seek a private audience just to ask that? It's something else. Ma Jin shook his head and spoke. Yunshin, you almost died on this mission. Listen. Long-lived martial artists often recognize their grudges well. Zhong Yunshin's eyebrows twitched at hearing the words long-lived. Your impact on the Murim isn't ordinary. Battles between martial forces aren't just all-out wars. The battle of informants is no less important. Word came from the superintendent's office. There are those investigating the desolate sect Lightning Genius's movements. Grudges. Just what we've heard so far are the Tyrant Sword Sect, Deep Martial Alliance and Blood Flame Sect. Cutting down the Tyrant Sword Sect Master's disciple and 8 fierce demon swords was excellent. However, they were both from lineages with thick martial artist layers even within the Tyrant Sword Sect. There are bound to be many sharpening their blades. Deep Martial Alliance is understandable. I took the head of one of their rising talents. Sword Art Flower, they said. I heard she was famous in Huguang and Henan regions as a girl with both beauty and sword talent. Seems there was a betrothed. You must be careful of not just the family patriarch but also the one said to be her lover. Zhong Yunshin silently agreed. The most troublesome is still the Blood Flame Sect. If you hadn't had the clear righteousness pill, you would have had to return to Desolate Sect. Ma Jin continued gravely. There was no martial art like your demon-destroying Azure Unyielding Palm technique. You're bound to be a target. You could have met the 7th Apostle at the Dragon Phoenix gathering. It's fortunate you avoided that demoness. That's why the Blood Flame Sect's apostles are focusing on expanding their influence across the Central Plains. The distance must have been considerable. Right. I'm not yet at the level to face an apostle head-on. When he first revealed the demon-destroying Azure Unyielding Palm, he took out the 7th Apostle's eye. It was like getting heavenly luck thanks to her carelessness and the chaotic battle. Zhong Yunshin newly realized how many had come to consider him an enemy. And not ordinary enemies. The 13 heavens of evil sects are comparable to the 9 sects and 8 families. It's something you must handle if you walk the martial world. Even so, you're excessive. It would be hard to find precedent for making so many powerful enemies in such a short time. Especially at your age. It sounds like you're saying I'm carrying out missions properly. Now you're truly a martial artist. Many harbor grudges against you. You must always be vigilant in the martial world. Remember this. Concern could be felt in Ma Jin's voice. Zhong Yunshin readily nodded. I have been running non-stop. It felt like briefly honing the sword in his heart before doing so again. He was glad that his enemies were all great sects of the 13 heavens of evil sects. The Tyrant Sword Sect and Blood Flame Sect were his enemies, and the more of their necks he cut, the more merit he would accumulate. Isn't the Huangbo family evil too? He fell into internal energy cultivation while returning to the group with Ma Jin. It was to use sword techniques efficiently. He had to constantly refine his true chi operation. Zhong Yunshin was growing stronger, separate from Ma Jin's warning. White ranks will be excluded from direct combat. It was the Annihilation Team leader's voice. He was starting mission assignments. Heon Wenchang and Shin Sobin were drafted. They became unable to participate in the mission to strike the Huangbo family. They were assigned the role of restraining the Dragon Phoenix Gathering's rising talents and the remnant Huangbo family guard unit. Zhong Yunshin had to separately receive advice from our Annihilation Team's Blue Rank Senior. The martial arts inherited by the Pinyin branch are mainly heavy sword techniques. If you parry lightly, you're likely to be pushed back. Remember the pool at the crook, marsh on forearm, and lesser C points. As you know, they're arm joint meridians. Make sure to fill them firmly with true chi when exchanging sword strikes. He familiarized himself with the martial art characteristics of the Huangbo branch in Pinyin County. It didn't take long. *****. 3 days passed after the battle on the plain. They really left us behind and went. Seems your sound attack was quite reliable, Lightning Genius. Chong Myong smiled with an amused expression. The 3 blue-ranked warriors of the Radiant Demon Wing including Zhong Yunshin had arrived at the southern edge of Shandong province. It was a marketplace where human presence was barely felt. Pinyin County, where the mission target had established their base, was truly quiet. The merchants who had laid out their spots and displayed their goods were mostly middle-aged men or elderly women. Beck Mirio stroked her long flowing hair. After glancing at the displayed accessories, she said, Jiangqiu, where the Huangbo main family is located, borders the Yellow River. It's a vast river. It would be troublesome if they escape by boat. To secretly control the area near the river, it's right to send minimal personnel to strike the branch family. They said Shandong Spring was dry. The marketplace atmosphere felt even more barren. The villagers who clearly looked at the sword-carrying group didn't even appear frightened. There was no vitality in their wrinkled faces that seemed to bear weariness. Young men aren't visible. They really must have been taken for forced labor. The Azure Sky Squad and Superintendent's office confirmed it multiple times. It can't be wrong. If they weren't a martial arts family, the Imperial Army would have been deployed, right? It's fortunate since army deployment wouldn't be good for people's livelihood either. Chong Myong said calmly. In fact, Zhong Yunshin had contemplated hiding Huang Xiong's mark again. He had kept thinking so until arriving at Pinyin County. It was different from previous missions involving the 13 evil sects. The Huangbo family was a renowned family in the orthodox martial world. He wanted to see their true nature. We can just go to the Huangbo branch and ask what the situation is. Tak. With Zhong Yunshin's words as the end, the three people stepped forward simultaneously. It was lightness technique steps carrying inner power. True chi filling the meridians to the toes began pushing their bodies forward. The speed gradually increased. Only then did the surrounding people, startled, rapidly distance themselves backward. They put aside the magistrate who had the duty to report the people's livelihood to the imperial court without concealment. They had heard well about the magistrate of this Pinyin County. That he was a very unusual person. If what they knew was correct, the magistrate would also be at the Huangbo branch. They headed straight for the estate containing the largest group of halls in the village. Though there was no hanging plaque, they could feel it was a martial arts family. It was because energy waves of internal energy could be felt from inside. Quack! In that moment, Zhong Yunshin's rush overtook the two people. It was a mission to adapt Radiant Demon Wings Lightning Flash's unique sound technique to actual combat. Having received a grateful opportunity, Zhong Yunshin didn't want to disappoint the two people's expectations. He operated the verse of Eternal Blossom Fist's Advancing Thunder. Quong! Fragments of the shattered gate scattered in all directions. The remaining force of the powerful energy wave made it seem as if hit by a storm. Zhong Yunshin momentarily hesitated at the scene suddenly revealed. A drinking party taking place in the large courtyard before the main gate. A small pond on one side caught his eye. It was a place decorated with carvings of all kinds of spirit beasts. Among the grass by the pond, not only the four divine beasts and Chalene but also strange beasts with peculiar wings could be seen. There were people holding wine cups sitting on large rocks surrounding the pond. They didn't stop tilting their cups even after seeing the group. Ah! One who had been laughing among 5 beautifully adorned women raised his head. He was a noble handsome man with yellow cornus flowers tucked behind his long ears. The servants busily moving around glanced at Zhong Yunshin's group, then silently continued their work. Today too, our Jinan's heroes have come. The main gate won't last. The nobleman raised his hand high. The sleeve of his mint-colored official robes fluttered. He continued speaking as if dealing with a very familiar matter. Why not just leave Shandong and report to somewhere like the Desolate Sect? I really can't understand. With what confidence do these low levels challenge the Huangbo family? Zhong Yunshin was silent for a moment. Chong Myong and Baek Emirio also seemed unable to say anything particular. Chapter 56, The Huangbo Family, 4. Desolate Sect martial uniforms have embroidered threads of the character Huanga on both shoulders and the center of the back. Those looking from the front had difficulty recognizing it. Unless they had considerable knowledge, that is. Are you the magistrate of Pinyin County? Zhong Yunshin quietly asked. They said it was a long-standing operation. He had heard much. Desolate Sect gathered as much information as possible before dispatching military forces under the Divine Sword groups. Not only the Huangbo family's main house but also the branch family's members and martial art characteristics were targets for investigation. Can't you tell by looking? I'm quite well known in my own right. The nobleman answered with a smile. He was an impressive handsome man whose official robes looked dignified. Even while looking at the strange warriors, he was being served wine by women, and there was such refinement in his hand extending while holding the cup. Though he was merely a pleasure-seeking official wearing a hat, his personal quality came across differently. The noble magistrate's gaze passed over Zhong Yunshin and Baek Emirio before landing on Chong Myong. So there was someone of the same clan. Surely you're not enjoying playing warrior together? It would be better not to. Let me advise you in advance. Chong Myong maintained a strange expression without answering. The estate's atmosphere was strange. The smell of alcohol filled everywhere, yet all the people moving about looked at the magistrate with expressions of reverence. Some even directed similar gazes at Chong Myong. They say Han people who admire elf families are everywhere. Zhong Yunshin thought. Was this what debauchery was? It was an atmosphere he had never experienced even at the Zhong family estate. He slowly stepped forward and opened his mouth. I know the head of the Huangbo branch in Pinyin County is your first wife. Call her out. How lacking in manners. Have you never studied Confucian learning? Is this how your parents taught you? The noble magistrate replied with a relaxed smile. A magistrate who colluded with martial arts families. What respect do you seek when your conduct is unworthy of a gentleman? At Zhong Yunshin's calm reply, the woman massaging the magistrate's arm stood up. She seemed about 30. Her languid downcast eyes were striking, and she gradually revealed an energy wave matching her red light armor. I am Jin Lang's principal wife. If you're a Shandong martial artist, you must have heard of me. I am Huangbo My Way of the Deep Autumn Sword. It meant the magistrate's surname was Jin. Langer was a term referring to husband. Noble families gained power with the founding of the Ming dynasty. Many women held positions from lower to higher offices and key posts in various martial arts sects. They said it was completely different from the Yuan dynasty era. Now it was irrelevant. As head of the Pinyin Huangbo family, I command you to refrain from disrespectful words and actions. No. It's already useless. What could have ended with an arm will now end with your head. As the woman's energy wave gradually grew stronger, warriors from various halls walked out. There were over 20. Though belittling in words, they didn't underestimate the energy wave of the fist technique that destroyed the gate. It was worthy of being called a renowned branch family. 5 warriors among the Pinyin Huangbo family's fighters began approaching first. Though appearing suddenly, solid spirit could be felt. There was a feeling like tempered iron. It seemed to say that even a branch was rooted in one of the 8 great families. Zhong Yunshin didn't look at them. He stared blankly at Deep Autumn Sword before slowly opening his mouth. Do you know Huangbo Myong Rin? What? Your talk of arms and heads is exactly the same. You seem to have heard something. She's an outstanding child worthy of attending the Dragon Phoenix gathering. However, a red smile formed on Deep Autumn Sword Huangbo My Wei's lips. It looked as if she had applied rouge. She continued speaking. Did you think we would be lenient if you spoke as if you knew our direct bloodline? Impossible. What a degenerate age. Martial artists should just focus on training. Zhong Yunshin unconsciously recalled words that sect elders might say. Along with that, the image of desolate sect's lord naturally came to mind. She who had reached the absolute realm was beautiful through dignity alone without other adornments. A martial artist should be beautiful through supreme martial arts. He spoke again. I saw the marketplace. It seems true that you privately mobilized citizens for labor. You've extended your martial world authority to affect people's lives. Aren't you ashamed as a martial artist? Meanwhile, Chong Myong and Bekemi Ryo had stepped back. The blue-ranked youngest was to be given Mirim experience. They had discussed earlier about not intervening unless the situation was truly dangerous, and it was impossible to measure how to repay the kindness of the Radiant Demon Wing seniors. That's when it happened. Everyone in the estate laughed at Zhong Yunshin's words. The magistrate and Deep Autumn Sword laughed loudly without even covering their mouths. Child. You've heard many Mirim rumors. Power is simply power. Distinguishing between the Mirim and people's lives? How can anyone do that? Deep Autumn Sword said with a face full of laughter. The noble magistrate chimed in. Martial arts families are simply noble families. How could it be wrong to enjoy luxuries befitting our history and the place we've settled? A noble denying imperial law. Your first wife's head will fly today. Zhong Yunshin's answer only drew mockery again. This time even the warriors who were slowly walking burst into laughter. You don't understand elegance. That's how those who call themselves heroes are like that. Hey! The magistrate clapped lightly. Yes, elder magistrate. Musicians appeared rushing out from various places to take their positions. They held instruments to be plucked and blown, including zithers and jade flutes. It was like watching a scene from an opera. Music began at the magistrate's gesture. Simultaneously, the Huangbo branch warriors drew their swords and approached closer. They seemed to treat even martial artists' swordplay as entertainment. Incredible! Zhong Yunshin stood still. He recalled stories he could hear because desolate sect gathered all matters under heaven. They were anecdotes of some high officials who had tasted many pleasures. They said the ultimate entertainment they enjoyed was appreciating murder. The scene before him was just like that. He could tell at once. This wasn't something that started yesterday or today. A young swordsman who can destroy the estate's gate. Quite a regrettable talent. Wouldn't it provide suitable entertainment? Deep Autumn Sword, who had already sat down again, shared a laugh with the magistrate. They even shared wine cups. It can be this different. Zhong Yunshin recalled when they first entered the village. The sound of grass brushing that had welcomed their group had been pleasantly modest. This place was different. It was suffocating. Can't stand it. He muttered unconsciously to himself. The melody that began flowing through the estate had refinement, as the magistrate said. Even Zhong Yunshin, who didn't know music, could feel it. That's why it was even more unwelcome. Shandong province was vast. They said Jinan was Shandong's center. There must have been many local martial artists, and among them must have been heroes as they mentioned. Rest in peace. One of them said. He was raising his drawn sword. He seemed to feel some small guilt, but the distance to Zhong Yunshin had already shortened to about 10 steps. Looks familiar. I'll have to reconsider the 8 great families. Aren't they just evil sect trash? Zhong Yunshin said while gripping the Northern Light Sword's hilt. There must have been many righteous warriors who came filled with indignation after seeing the citizens' forced labor. They seemed to have killed them all. The music now naturally flowing past his ears. The warriors approaching with footwork as if matching the rhythm. He decided to take the initiative. Thud! Whoosh! He stamped his slightly raised foot with true angle. Concentric winds blew in all directions. The power properly raised was deeper than before. He had been constantly operating the Moon Spirit Harmony technique while creating new internal energy techniques. The energy accumulation of the Peerless Divine technique was indeed different. Changes were already somewhat noticeable. Everyone's expressions changed at one true angle. Simultaneously, Zhong Yunshin's body tilted forward. As wind exploded past his ears, his field of vision rapidly expanded. The movement was instantaneous. Waves of true chi began spreading from his hand gripping the sword hilt. He had already reached right in front of the enemies. He circulated internal true chi following the verse. Dazzling sunlight shimmered at the end of the radiant sword style's draw. Swoosh! The moment light flashed, 2 heads flew off at once. They couldn't even scream. It's not over. There are many enemies. Energy waves exploded from Zhong Yunshin's body. Energy waves that surged in 8 directions partially reached the Northern Light Sword and transformed into chilling sharpness. Once again, with true angle, the aftermath of a horizontal sword strike scraped the ground. The sensation of the blade cutting another one's neck reached his grip. Splash! Now Zhong Yunshin's swordsmanship had reached a realm where blood spurted a breath later. He shouted in the gradually rising dust. Desolate sect's radiant demon wing condemns you. It was a shout carrying inner power. Everyone in the estate was startled as if convulsing. The phrase scattered in panic would be fitting. 3 corpses were created in an instant. It was the time of one blink. The music that had been flowing with lively rhythm stopped in one breath. Desolate sect. Wait, wait! The noble magistrate stood up abruptly and waved his hands. Cold sweat that had appeared from who knows when made his handsome face gleam. I have committed a great discourtesy. Please forget what was said until now. I am from the elf clan. How could I dare disturb imperial order? His eyes moved sharply. He scanned from Zhong Yunshin, who had shifted to reveal the character Huang below his shoulder. His gaze also reached Bekemi Ryo and Chong Myong, who stood indifferently. A kind of resignation seemed to form on the magistrate's face. He seemed to reach certainty upon seeing Ching Myong of the elf clan. My wife received orders from the main family, and I as magistrate of Jinan could not go against the Huangbo family's authority. You call that an excuse? Aren't you even ashamed to take back your words? Please show mercy. I know you cannot kill an imperial official. If the branch members and I attack together, even you would find it difficult to leave unscathed. Energy waves spread from the magistrate's right hand as he finished speaking. It was deep internal energy that could be immediately felt as having accumulated considerable training. You're a threat? The guilty party trying to act innocent. Finally, Bekemirio and Chong Myong stepped forward. If it's desolate sect, you must have come knowing everything. I have no choice either, right? Meanwhile, the magistrate's smile regained composure. He lightly tapped the shoulder of his first wife, Deep Autumn Sword, who was glaring fiercely at Zhong Yunshin. Wife. Yes. Deep Autumn Sword Huangbo Maiwei snapped her fingers. It was the moment a sound carrying internal energy spread. Over 30 more warriors poured out from various halls. As Jinan was a massive city, even a branch family governing a single county was equipped with martial might befitting their role. The stillness that covered the estate in that moment didn't come as silence. It was because the momentum of the Huangbo family warriors filled the hall. Wouldn't it be better to withdraw like this? The magistrate said while looking at Chong Myong, who had somehow come to stand beside Zhong Yunshin. His clothes were now fluttering as if he had raised his entire body's internal energy. Persuasion came across as threat. You spoke of elegance. Zhong Yunshin said. He looked once around at the warriors who had begun gradually surrounding them in a circle. I too have recently practiced a melody. With his words, there was vibration rising from the Northern Light Sword. It was a gradually growing resonance. Zhong Yunshin glanced at Bekemirio and Chong Myong while operating his entire body's internal energy at full force. It was the moment they slightly nodded. Wish! A long cry rose from the blade. In that instant, invisible waves of true chi surged and swept all directions. Hupe! It was truly a surreal sight. Dozens fell in all directions with short groans. Dull sounds echoed everywhere. Though the sword sound quickly faded, its aftermath did not. The encirclement collapsed entirely. The Huangbo branch warriors lay on the ground in various positions. They stared blankly at the sky, having died with eyes wide open. Only a very few, including the magistrate and Deep Autumn Sword, remained standing. Evil sect trash talking about elegance. Zhong Yunshin opened his mouth after looking slightly around. Seems it was quite moving for you, he said while sheathing the Northern Light Sword. Chapter 57, The Huangbo Family, 5. The Huangbo family was an ancient one. The Huangbo bloodline, which rose to prominence in Shandong during the late Yuan dynasty, established their base in the heart of Shandong province. It was Jinan. There had been great masters who honed the family's martial arts over time. The consolidated family's martial arts grew increasingly powerful. It was a chaotic era. They seized Yuan dynasty's large estates wherever they could. This continued until the noble families who claimed to have descended from light came to power. The Huangbo family began to be called local nobles in exchange for conforming to the new Ming dynasty. It was the birth of a martial arts family. They acted as rulers of Jinan for generations. Mom, when is brother coming? A girl about 14 or 15 planted an axe with a thud next to household items. They were a family that had been chopping wood for 2 generations in Pinyin County of Jinan. Though they say martial arts aren't easy to learn, those who could read often kept books on qi circulation and breathing methods. The 3 powers internal energy technique distributed by the imperial court increased the manpower. They said even ignorant commoners could draw in a bit of atmospheric energy. It was said to be a prestigious family's secret technique that created mighty warriors by planting strength in body and earth, and made fields fertile. A middle-aged woman sitting and twisting straw rope opened her mouth. Though wearing shabby hemp clothes, her tone carried dignity and her pronunciation was clear. The Huangbo family took him, didn't they? Let's wait patiently. Your brother might return as a martial artist. If he becomes even a gatekeeper for a powerful family, we won't have to skip meals. The trees in the back mountain aren't good these days. Uncle Ma keeps cutting the price. Why wasn't he taken away? The girl complained. Though quite skilled with an axe for her age, she wasn't truly mighty. The 3 powers internal energy technique was mysterious but closer to a cultivation technique. The girl could work as much as grown men because of her outstanding talent. Even Uncle Ma, who seemed to have connections with the Huangbo family, had started pressuring her to join aggressively. Her startled mother whispered. Taken away? Watch your words. They say martial artists have ears as good as bats. They're all probably feasting with the magistrate anyway. I'm glad those playboys who kept bothering me were taken away, but we might starve to death at this rate. Wood prices are dirt cheap, and food scarce. What little there is, the magistrate and Huangbo folks take it all. I said, watch your words. The middle-aged woman who screamed in a whisper said while catching her breath. The Huangbo family is a noble house that protects us. It was the same in your grandfather's time when he passed the civil service exam. Always talking about grandfather? He said people outside Jinan constantly have their wages stolen by martial artists. At least we don't have that happening to us. If your dead father hadn't been a gambler, we would have lived properly. Stealing wages? That's what the Huangbo folks are doing. How much could brother earn if he were here? Child, really? You'll be in big trouble cursing an orthodox sect. The girl who got slapped on the back left the house grumbling. What orthodox sect? They kill all the heroes. Mom uses characters strangely. What happened to teaching me letters? The mother's scolding leaked through the closed door gap. The girl paid no attention and set out. Perhaps because she walked aimlessly, she carelessly reached the Huangbo house of Pinyin County, the largest in the village. It was the moment the girl quickly turned after glancing up at the large estate. Oh. Perfect timing. It was a voice with thick resonance. A strong hand grabbed and lifted her by the scruff of her neck. I heard one branch family was exterminated by desolate sect thugs. You and Uncle Ma. The girl's body was spun around. A middle-aged man wearing yellow silk clothes wore an indifferent expression. He muttered while walking toward the shattered gate. You could be a question for those fellows. What is chivalry? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Sword song. The power revealed by the sword sound attack was overwhelming. What is this? Deep Autumn Sword Huangbo Maiwei looked around the estate in bewilderment. Fallen dead and unconscious bodies were strewn everywhere in succession. The battle stopped. Until the servants who had withdrawn, leaving only the table settings when the fight began, slightly showed their faces. What? Why are they lying down? They're bleeding. They're not moving? Are they dead? It was the moment their shrill screams rang out at seeing the tragic scene. Energy waves flowed from Deep Autumn Sword's hand resting on her sword hilt. Despite all her adornments, her hands alone couldn't hide traces of training. She was certainly a rare swordsman. Her killing intent could be felt in her voice even though only her lips moved between her teeth. How dare you? Sound attacks are martial arts that's rare in the world. The magistrate muttered. Gone was the appearance of a dignified pleasure-seeker who wanted to watch a bloody battle with music. He could only stare with sunken grave eyes at Ma Guangxing's three people. There was time for a few breaths. Zhong Yunshin took a long inhale. The moon spirit harmony technique was also a method of breathing in and out. His mind calmed as he recalled desolate sect lord's long, thin breath when receiving the technique. I overdid it. The true chi operation method used to cast the sword song was incredibly precise. He pushed his senses to their limit. It was about loading radiating true chi onto sound created by internal energy. It was martial arts that greatly used upper Dantian abilities. It could even be called divine skill. Weren't we discussing elegance? Why no more words? Though Zhong Yunshin spoke deliberately calmly, he felt extreme fatigue. It felt like having a water-soaked cloth in his head. It was his first time using the sword song at full power. That was necessary to instantly kill martial artists. The same was true even for those inferior to him. Since natural protective energy was also clearly an internal energy barrier, there was no choice when trying to pierce ears and kill with sword resonance. I can't use it twice. I didn't know even doing it once would be this hard. His previously excellent physical condition rapidly deteriorated. They said life and death in the world of masters is divided by the smallest difference. If there were opponents of equal or greater number among the enemies, he would have to continue a difficult fight. It was the moment he observed his interior thanks to the moon spirit harmony technique's breathing. Zhong Yunshin briefly lost his senses. Above his head. The crown. It was clearly different from morning. He recognized the difference over one day with his innate senses. The Baihui point had widened. It seemed like 3 days' worth. Teeth note Baihui, DU20, known as the 100 meetings point, is a significant acupuncture point located at the crown of the head where various neurological pathways converge. My hand. His index finger trembled in the middle of actual combat. It wasn't from lack of strength. It was because panic visited briefly. An instinctive fear of death suddenly approached. The abyss briefly overwhelmed him. Moving true chi was like using muscle power. They said if one could freely handle power without exerting force in internal energy focus, they were already a peerless master. The internal energy realms called 3 flowers gathering at the crown, 5 energies returning to origin, reaching the peak etc. were that process. It was different from Zhong Yunshin's innate senses. It was like climbing a massive mountain. I'll think about solutions later. A life and death battle lies ahead. He forcibly returned his consciousness. He deliberately pushed his anxiety to one corner of his mind. Like how he had crumpled the shock of his first kill during the Zhong family's extermination. Think about martial arts first. Would there be no recoil if I reached at least the black rank realm? Zhong Yunshin's power control relied greatly on his innate upper dantian. He operated true chi through senses alone without fundamental changes in internal energy realm. There had to be reaction to transcending limits. Golden threads. A disciple of desolate sect's lord. Deep autumn sword Huangbo my way muttered while slowly approaching. The scene spread around her was compensation for the price Zhong Yunshin paid. The sight created by the collapsed encirclement was truly overwhelming. A blue-ranked warrior had single-handedly shattered the entire force of one branch of the 8 great families. How did Zhong Yunshin appear as he stood silently? Deep autumn sword steps were cautious. Though she seemed to have started using footwork techniques, no particular energy wave was felt. Zhong Yunshin just stared blankly. Deep autumn sword Huangbo my way. She was nominally the head of a branch family. Her appearance of applying rouge to her lips and showing affection to her lord among many concubines had to be viewed separately. He didn't think her accumulated martial arts would be shallow. Zhong Yunshin stood here stepping on the enemy's carelessness. He absolutely could not be in the opposite position. Swish! He gripped the desolate sword's hilt and slowly drew it up. Deep autumn sword. I remember what you said. Being in desolate doesn't make a lowborn's blood noble. You don't qualify to exchange words with me. You mentioned arms first. Evil sect trash. Zhong Yunshin said quietly. His head was ringing. Though his overworked upper dantian felt burning hot like white heat, he transmitted words to Chong Myong and Bek Mirio through sound transmission. That he was treating this as a solo mission. It meant not to interfere. Advancing beyond black to purple martial robes? Perhaps there was no path except through chaos. There would be battles where he'd hover between life and death. He absolutely needed experience in unleashing martial arts in a disturbed state like now. Therefore he said, "Come." In that moment, he felt presences crossing the estate's threshold from afar. It wasn't time to mind that now. Whoosh! Heavy energy waves rose from her sword before his eyes. The blade surface was very wide. It was as the blue-ranked senior of Annihilation Team had said. They said the martial arts inherited by this Pinyin branch was heavy sword. It meant the sword energy was steady and firm, rarely wavering. Linear energy waves extended toward him along with tremendous sword power. It seemed like she had circulated true chi several times while walking here. It was a properly prepared strike. Clang! He almost lost his grip when meeting it with the desolate sword. Even though he tried to deflect it as much as possible. Simultaneously, Zhong Yunshin's slackened senses sharpened again. Tack! He stepped back once. At the same time, his realm of instinct shone. Twisting his elbow, he led the opponent's energy wave to his lower back internal oblique muscles. His knees bent naturally. It was the moment the aftermath of the received sword strike passed through the gluteus maximus of his waist to reach the back of his thighs. At that point, the opponent's power became Zhong Yunshin's energy wave. Powerful energy explosively increased from his leg that had stepped back. Boom! It became a true step without even lifting and stamping his foot. It was instantaneous. The movement of his entire body's muscles that had deflected power was instantly reversed. The power that burned up to his hand gripping the sword hilt released an invisible heavy energy wave. The air was shaken. It was the moment of returning heavy sword with heavy sword. Wind gusts rose from fragments of energy force bursting from Zhong Yunshin's hand holding the desolate sword. He swung the sword upward just like that. Bang! Whoop! Deep Autumn Sword's blade, which was just striking down for a second sword draw, flew away. She was not an opponent who showed any carelessness. This was Zhong Yunshin's sense and the lightning flash's martial might. Her face that seemed to have lost its senses for a moment brushed the edge of his vision. The moment her sword flew, she rotated forward. Zhong Yunshin too had immediately prepared a second strike. Chwack! A distinctly cumbersome feeling was felt from the blade. Blood stained the desolate sword that returned with dim light. Deep Autumn Sword's right arm had fallen off. Huke! She exhaled empty breath and staggered back. Zhong Yunshin shook his sword once. In this moment, he was strong. He was clearly looking down on the head of a Huangbo family branch. It wasn't talent limited to learning. Combat ability that sharpened even in moments of exhaustion. In his senses was strength that couldn't be estimated by martial arts ranking. Next time he might go out to the Murim alone. Cheng Myong's voice tinged with laughter was heard from behind. Zhong Yunshin moved his steps steadily. Blood dripped from the lowered sword tip, and at its end was Deep Autumn Sword urgently striking the meridian point of her right forearm to stop the bleeding. Zhong Yunshin slowly parted his lips. You said it. He lifted the desolate sword slightly while stepping forward indifferently. It was the moment of single-handedly destroying one branch of the Huangbo family. It seemed excessive as payment for 3 days of lifespan. At least it wasn't merit a blue rank could accumulate alone. Already desolate sect lord's face came to mind. After arms, you mentioned the neck. He said. Chapter 58, Great Hero of Desolate Sect. The opponent lost both sword and arm. It was when Zhong Yunshin was about to strike Deep Autumn Sword's neck. You insolent B***st** road. The magistrate's body, who was far behind, rushed forward creating a windstorm. The mint-colored hem of his official robes fluttered like a butterfly. Passing by Deep Autumn Sword with movements unique to elves, he spread both arms wide to block her. You dare harm this magistrate's principal wife? Desolate Sect is the imperial sword. Where does a mere blade dare cut its own master? Are the Huangbo bloodline equals to the imperial court? Zhong Yunshin asked back with eyes more dispassionate than looking at roadside trash. He never knew he would feel such emotions toward nobles. At least while at the fixed house, it was unimaginable. The magistrate bit his lip once. You can't do anything without cutting down this magistrate. Give up. How dare you harm me, the magistrate of this Pinyin County? You're not even a black-ranked warrior. Whoosh! The wind blew once more. Zhong Yunshin glanced sideways. Cheng Myong was suddenly standing beside him. His usual smiling expression had completely disappeared. Just follow clan law. Cheng Myong said. Simultaneously, his expression changed. His eyes remained the same but only his lips formed a smile. The Grand Empress Dowager has decreed that Desolate Sect elves may execute officials of 6th rank or lower regardless of hierarchy. The magistrate is 7th rank, right? I thought it was an absurd privilege, but running missions, occasions to use it do arise. You really? They say our clan becomes unsightly when mixing with Han people and becoming worldly, but who would say anything about taking one head? At most, perhaps a brief summons to Beijing. The magistrate who had appreciated warriors' deaths while listening to music lost his enthusiasm. His handsome face turned completely pale. This time even Zhong Yunshin was surprised. While it was already natural that elves held high authority in Ming, he learned for the first time that they held authority comparable to black-ranked warriors of great master level. Perhaps because imperial bloodlines were deeply mixed with elf blood. Ha! Suddenly the magistrate sighed. Soon finding composure in his complexion, he smiled slightly. I almost showed an unseemly appearance on my way out. Without elegance, how can one discuss the refinement of drinking and dancing? Why say more? Go without dirtying elf face. Ah, of course. As Cheng Myong drew his sword, the magistrate's smile deepened. I must go now. None under heaven who don't welcome me. Zhong Yunshin turned his gaze backward. It was because of energy waves rising from the direction of the shattered gate. There had been a presence stimulating his nerves since fighting Deep Autumn Sword, and indeed it wasn't an ally. Desolate Sect. His build was very large. He was a middle-aged man with a long scar on his cheek. He held the scruff of a girl's neck in one hand. She appeared to be around Zhong Yunshin's age, and seemed to have her mute and paralysis point sealed. Unable to speak and body stiffened, she hung from the man's hand. He shouted like a roar. "You degenerates who disturb the Murim discussing strange chivalry." The magistrate, brightening at his shout, chimed in. "Now I should call you Huangbo Marjan instead of Mr. Ma. Such crisis does come. With the main family's warrior's arrival, this Jin has been relieved of great worry." The magistrate shouted. Though deep autumn soared Huangbo Maiwei, who was called the first wife, didn't look entirely cheerful as if concerned about her right arm, relief seemed to spread across her face. The man called Huangbo Marjan did not answer. He completely ignored the magistrate as if he had always found him disagreeable. Holding the girl high, he looked straight at Zhong Yunshin and opened his mouth. "Young warrior. At that age, being desolate sect blue ranked must mean nothing in the world seems worthy in your eyes. Even more so seeing the pattern on your shoulder. Direct disciple of desolate sect's lord? I can clearly see your mind intoxicated with honor and status. Isn't it you who sees nothing?" Clearly holding an innocent civilian, Zhong Yunshin said while slightly tilting his head. He was already measuring the distance. Too far. This fellow had accumulated considerable training. Even if Chong Myong, whose movements were faster than his, rushed in, it was too far to save the girl in time. Huangbo Marjan sneered. The actions of the Huangbo bloodline always have great justice. What would you half-martial artists eating the nation's salary know? You desolate sect lot who are obsessed with taking martial artists' heads, crawling all the way to Jinan. Did you just say great justice? Zhong Yunshin asked while alternately looking at the girl's face with slightly raised eyes and Huangbo Marjan. His gaze substituted for asking if they felt no shame. Huangbo Marjan's chest puffed up even more. The great justice of the Murim is noble. You lot are thugs splashing muddy water on the Murim. Stop interfering in the world of those who cultivate through martial arts. He had heard there were such people. It was a world where exchange of culture and ideas wasn't active. The Murim was especially so. There were many stubborn extremists. Martial arts training was a single path of cultivation. They said this was why reclusive martial artists who rarely showed themselves would cause storms on flat ground when they came out to the world once in a while. Taking hostages and discussing chivalry. Confucian and Mencius teachings couldn't communicate with them. Confucius and Mencius taught moral philosophy centered on human virtue, emphasizing personal ethics, proper behavior, and the importance of harmonious relationships through 5 key virtues: Ren, humanity; Yi, righteousness; Li, proper conduct; Shi, knowledge; and Xin, loyalty. Of course, Desolate Sect also didn't talk to martial artists with the principles of the 4 books and 3 classics. They only pointed swords. The Huangbo family must be even more so. They called themselves Jinan's royal family or whatever. They strengthened their power by gathering their bloodline. Zhong Yunshin's thoughts didn't last long. It was because Huangbo Marjan spoke while shaking the hand gripping the girl's nape. Your chivalry is extremely alien. You come rushing in to cut necks saying imperial law was violated. Were there no heroes of justice among the lowborn? Let me tell you this girl's story. Go ahead. While responding, he circulated internal true qi. Zhong Yunshin prepared overlapping chain techniques while standing calmly. He hoped the kicking technique's energy wave of the eternal blossom fist could break his balance. This child's grandfather was a man called Dan Muhai, who served as magistrate of this Pinyin County before that current magistrate took office. Strength seemed to enter the jaw of the girl who could only glare. Huangbo Marjan continued speaking unconcerned. He was an upright character. They say he fearlessly confronted evil sect martial artists intimidating people in the marketplace. He shouted that he would lock them in the government prison while questioning the Great Ming Code. He grinned. He flew away with his stomach burst from one palm technique. That evil sect fellow was also quite ignorant of worldly matters. He probably thought he could end it by escaping with likeness technique, but he had to face the main family's wrath as they tried to coordinate Jinan's order with the magistrate. That's how we avenged this child's enemy. Are you playing benefactor while holding her neck? She's a child with outstanding talent. She accumulated considerable energy even with just the 3 powers internal energy technique. It would be a waste to kill her now, but I've always wanted to see your true face, you desolate sect lot. She's the granddaughter of the previous magistrate who governed the county with high virtue. How will you handle this? NNNGH. The girl groaned and squirmed slightly. She seemed to have somewhat unsealed the pressure points herself. They said she had talent for energy accumulation, and perhaps she truly had innate sense for handling energy. Look at this. Huangbo Marjun, glancing at her with distinctive eyes, raised his hand high. The girl's body dangled. If you lot withdraw now, this child lives. It would also prove Desolate Sect's chivalry that protects all people from the Murim. However, if not. His eye swept the front. Perhaps meaning he couldn't stand watching Desolate Sect throwing its weight around. Hatred seemed to seep from his face. He continued briefly. Never speak of people's livelihood again. The Huangbo family coordinates Jinan's order. Unlike worthless half-baked heroes. Every word is correct. The magistrate, now even smiling, chimed in at that moment. How much longer must we listen? Zhong Yunshin suddenly said. Simultaneously, pitch-black smoke rose below the back of Huangbo Marjun's head. What? Beck Mirio stood behind him with a cold face. She was wrapped in black energy flow as if flames rising from the abyss. Spirit light dark as the night sky filled her eyes. Swish! Conversely, Beck Mirio's hand, dyed white as snow, grabbed the back of Huangbo Marjun's neck. He couldn't even resist. Desolate Sect's blue sleeve fluttered with materialized ink-colored true chi. Though the same clothes, the martial uniform she wore was different. It approached like a black celestial maiden's clothes, as if the reincarnation of the Nine Heavens fairy from legends. Beck Mirio moved her lips. Aren't you one of the 8 great families? How petty. It was a low voice. She overwhelmed him completely. After delaying his reactions with mysterious energy waves, she instantly sealed his paralysis points. It seemed he wasn't originally an elite warrior of the main family but just someone monitoring the branch. Chong Myong grinned. Radiant Demon and the Azure Sky and Annihilation forces headed to your main family. They should be getting exterminated about now. The squad leaders would have shattered them. What? The moment the magistrate froze stiff, Zhong Yunshin's form spun. He passed by the magistrate with a natural rotation like a leaf riding gentle spring breeze. At the end of the body movement of momentary technique was the Desolate Sect sword. The blade below his grip flashed with chilling light. Chwack! Zhong Yunshin felt it clearly from his grip. The sensation of cutting flesh and cleaving bone announced the end of the mission. Perhaps she was about to call him lowborn again? Deep Autumn Sword Huangbo Maiwei's mouth shape suggested so. It was futile. Her head fell off as her lips crumpled in shock. Desolate Sect doesn't negotiate with traitors. Zhong Yunshin said while looking down at Deep Autumn Sword's head. It was the moment the belatedly turning magistrate reached out with an enraged face. There was no sound. A cold blade tip protruded through his abdomen. Ching Myong's Desolate Sect sword had pierced his back. I like this. Though brief, you were insufferable. Even while killing someone, Chong Myong's voice was refreshing. It would have been the last words the magistrate heard. The energy wave Chong Myong expelled through his sword was overwhelming. Blood tears welled up in the eyes of the corpse that had been pierced through the abdomen. It seemed the insides were completely destroyed. Even senior Chong Myong's techniques weren't this cold. Perhaps being from the same elf clan made him even more ruthless. It wasn't over. When Zhong Yunshin turned around, his eyes widened. Kook. A sinister chill emanated from Beck Mirio's white hand that was gripping the back of Huangbo Marjun's neck. Simultaneously, his neck crumbled helplessly like crushed ice. Ute! The captured girl managed to land without falling on her bottom. After her small shriek, silence fell over the estate. The sunset was already falling. The sunlight, which seemed to slowly roll darkness into a bedding, cast a pale light. An ominous wind blowing through the martial arts world rustled past the leaves of the ash tree by the pond. The incident was concluded. The magistrate and Deep Sword were dead. The warriors of the Huangbo branch family were also completely annihilated. The cleanup wasn't the Blue Rank's job. People from the Desolate Sect would come. Zhong Yunshin passed by the Dan family girl with his Desolate sword sheathed. He wanted to say something to the girl his age who had been through such a harsh experience. Without stopping his steps, he slowly opened his mouth. You have a talent for martial arts. Who? The girl sharply turned her head around, but Jong Yunshin didn't look back. Baek Mi Ryo, who had already erased her materialized black true chi, was smiling slightly. Her eyes, which had been completely black, regained their whites and black pupils. Only her snow-white hands remained unchanged as she stroked Jong Yunshin's head. Along with the cool sensation, her soft sleeve brushed past his ear. Desolate sect is not a sect that discusses chivalry. If you wish to become a righteous warrior, you'll get hurt someday. Thank you for the advice. Jong Yunshin responded while slightly closing his eyes. Either way, this mission was a success. He had accumulated another great achievement. There wouldn't have been room for their group to intervene at the Huangbo main family where the squad leaders went directly. That's when it happened. As if waiting for the incident to end, a bird flew in. With sky blue feathers gleaming strand by strand, it landed on Cheong Myong's finger. It seemed to be a spirit beast. It was different from the one used by the second son of the Huangbo family. A mysterious fragrance emanated from the small body of the creature. Cheong Myong untied the small message tied to the bird's leg. Did Shin Sobin write this? The characters are quite dense. As Cheong Myong opened and scanned the message, his head tilted slightly. Has something gone wrong? Jong Yunhin asked calmly. No. This isn't from the group that went to attack the main family. Then, you know how the white-ranked warriors were holding the Dragon Phoenix Gathering's rising talents. Their families must have given it their all. They finally found them. The location. Yes. Apparently they even clashed with the Blood Flame Sect B*ST*RDS. There were 3 battles. First the martial families, then Blood Flame Sect, then the martial families again. While regrouping, they suffered a major defeat. Even Haiyan Wenchang was captured. Chapter 59, Great Hero of Desolate Sect, 2. Dan Zhongjong. They heard the girl's name while leaving Pinyin County. Dan Zhongjong had her pressure point sealed and was grabbed by the nape by a martial artist. She was a commoner. Anyone would worry about after effects. Jong Yunshin was inwardly concerned, but there was no need. She was composed after being released. She showed strong determination even after seeing the carnage Radiant Demon Wing created. Isn't spring-dried tofu skin delicious? She warmly kept offering dried tofu skin to Jong Yunshin, who was her age, but he only took one bite before leaving Pinyin County. They would likely never meet again. He thought she would live well with such qualities and mental strength. Our lightning flash would be the best candidate for a husband. Was he trying to repeat the teasing from the Righteous Sword family? Cheong Myong opened his mouth with a slight smile, but this time there was no one to respond. Back then he had bantered back and forth with Haiyan Wenchang. Not now. Whoosh! They began running as soon as they left Pinyin County. The lightness technique rush of 3 Radiant Demon Wings blue-ranked masters scattered wind streams. The destination was set the moment they received the message. Jong Yunshin was different from the blue-ranked seniors with great power. He needed to get fine horses from relay stations to travel long distances. Cheong Myong and Baek Mi Ryo also said they preferred using relay station routes to conserve internal energy. Unseasonable sandstorms spread on the main road. The earth-colored dust spreading to their sides and back spoke of urgency. Jong Yunshin asked while stamping the ground with the 2 companions. Are those martial families strong enough to handle 5 white ranks? Regular sects shouldn't have been a problem. Unless the opponent was one of the 9 sects or 8 great families. The battle with the Blood Flame sect we fought earlier must have been exhausting too, but the wind was fierce as their lightness technique was fast. Voice had to carry true chi. Cheong Myong's answer came with the unique rumbling of inner power. They couldn't exert full power. It's obvious since some were taken away alive. Jong Yunshin sighed briefly. He immediately recalled what Cheong Myong said. It was when he drew his sword song speaking of a solo mission. He understood what effect shaking the brain had on Master's battles. Because of my sound attack's aftermath. It's because the white-ranked kids' martial arts were shallow. When you're not stronger than the enemy, you have no choice but to take care of yourself. That's the Nurim. Cheong Myong's words were cold. Baek Mi Ryo, running beside them with her usual indifferent face, opened her lips. Either way, it's something blue ranks must handle. We must split at the relay station. The main force has no leeway. Exterminating one of the 8 great families is no ordinary matter. We must do it. They went down to South Shili? The blood demons. There are many paths to keep in mind. About for roots. Chong Myong said. There were treasures in his head as a desolate sect elf. They said he had a map of the Central Plains more important than most martial arts manuals. It was a right equal to black-ranked great masters. Unlike Zhong Yunshin, who received education about local geography for each mission. Blood Flame sect, martial arts families. Zhong Yunshin, who repeated the enemies, was briefly silent. He recalled when he had just entered after taking the desolate examination. The superintendent's office scholar had said. Though desolate sect was called the Imperial Sword, martial artists harming desolate sect warriors wasn't treason. Because they weren't warriors belonging to the Imperial Court. They said it was due to hostile martial artists' lightness and body techniques. It was from the early founding period. There were cases where they couldn't catch people even after declaring they would exterminate entire clans for treason. When equating state affairs with oppressing martial artists, there was high risk of the imperial dignity falling. Zhong Yunshin suddenly asked. But isn't desolate sect the strongest in the martial world? With what confidence did the family sects make surprise attacks? One of two things. Our methods are quite cold, right? They probably thought their children wouldn't be safe. What wouldn't parents do when they go crazy? There must have been some family heads who gave up their children. What's the other? They know that our desolate sect has no leeway. Such insight is why the main sect's warriors die away from the sect. Sects that can oppose desolate sect are of two types. Small sects who think their world is everything, and large sects who observe worldly affairs. Only mediocre ones can't touch the main sect. Chong Myong muttered. Zhong Yunshin observed his face as he mentioned dying away from home. There was no expression on his handsome features. He was a senior known to be promising. Even when he went around saying people die because they deserve to, no one said anything. It was unfamiliar seeing him quietly angry with such a calm appearance. Ching Myong opened his mouth again. There are 17 military forces under the Divine Sword Squad, right? Our Radiant Demon Wing is counted among the top forces even within the Divine Sword Squads. We're often compared to elite forces like the Plum Blossom Sword Masters of the 9 sects. The problem is the number 17. It's quite ambiguous. Then Beck Mi Ryo, who had silently approached from the side, stroked Zhong Yunshin's head. She seemed to have taken a liking to it. It started after Zhong Yunshin called her sister during the Great Violet Pill mission. She was cold yet gentle. Even while rushing quickly, her touch didn't waver. As she rubbed deep into Zhong Yunshin's hair, she parted her lips. The problem is having to watch the entire Central Plains. Governing a martial world the size of 15 or 16 small countries. It's an impossible duty. We're always short-handed. Any sect with reasonably quick information gathering and insight knows this. They rarely show fear. Chong Myong, who had begun adding speed to his lightness technique, chimed in. The wind sound striking their ears grew fiercer. Zhong Yunshin added true chi to the Yongchen point under his feet and opened his mouth. This mission's repercussions will be big. We exterminated one of the 8 great families by pulling out forces we don't have. That's right. It's something unlikely to happen again. They already considered the Huangbo family's extermination a foregone conclusion. It wasn't just because they had seen the power of 3 military forces up close. It was after completing their share of the mission. Their minds were elsewhere. Zhong Yunshin carefully opened his mouth. I don't understand why they took them without killing them. Would Sir Hyon still be alive? Usually it would end in death. After taking down a desolate sect warrior, who would keep them alive instead of killing them completely? That's why capturing them is different. There must be intent. The desolate sect warrior is being referenced here is the investigator who went missing in earlier chapters. Chong Myong answered. 3 white-ranked warriors including Hyon Wenchang were captured. It wasn't the work of orthodox martial arts families. There was no need to add future troubles when they could just take away their children. They said the Blood Flame sect did it. What intent? At Zhong Yunshin's question, Beck Mi Ryo's black pupils glanced at him. Ching Myong's blue eyes did the same. I think it's those who were pursuing since the Dragon Phoenix gathering. The movements connect. The captured white ranks might just be means. Isn't the demon-destroying Azure unyielding palm the issue? It seems they want to kill you by any means. It made sense. These were ones who even mobilized thunderclap bombs. His senior's speculation struck sharply. If they make another counter-technique like the 13 Heavens. The words complete extermination came to Zhong Yunshin's mind. However, it was also hard to be certain it was all done just targeting one desolate sect's lightning flash. This was why the group had to split up and sweep north of South Chile. Discussing movements, they arrived at the relay station. It was a place where officials sometimes slept during journeys. They lightly jumped over the large roof before descending. Zhong Yunshin, being the youngest, stepped forward. He showed the desolate sect token to the administrator who had startled awake from nodding off. It's genuine. Take them. Mounting the borrowed horse right away, Zhong Yunshin thought. Using the nation's relay station so easily yet not belonging to the imperial court. The privileges of black-ranked great masters and Chong Myong who could kill officials were the same. The Great Ming Code means nothing. There are so many above the law. Worldly affairs were complicated, but now wasn't the time to mind that. They had to split up right away. Finding the white ranks comes first, but avoid getting caught in power struggles. The Namgang family is at war with the Blood Flame sect. Those evil sect B*ST*RDS spread their heaven-spanning net in their inner courtyard of Huiju. They must be desperate. His tone was light. Chong Myong, casually stretching his legs on horseback, winked. Zhong Yunshin was used to heeding his senior's words. Even when they didn't sound important at first glance. He took everything as words directly related to life and merit. Since they were captured by blood demons, they'll live for 10 days. They're ones who steal true chi through blood techniques. Main sect warriors are rare prey. Beck Mirio said as she mounted her fine horse with elegant movement. Flipping her ear-length hair that flowed like black ebony while looking at Zhong Yunshin, her obsidian-like pupils contained concern. What's there to worry about? The Huangbo branch's extermination will be recorded in the lightning flash's merits. More than enough for a solo mission. Chong Myong smiled and gestured with his chin. It was time to split up. Giving a brief cupped fist salute on horseback, Zhong Yunshin whipped his horse without looking back. The mission continued immediately. They said rescuing companions would also be recorded as merit. It didn't feel very meaningful. At this moment, Zhong Yunshin's heart didn't speak of merit. He hoped Haiyan Wenchang would be safe until he could be called a desolate divine hero. Zhong Yunshin came down below Pinyin County. It was straight to South Chile. Chong Myong's spirit beast served as a carrier pigeon. The blue-ranked masters who finished their mission would spread across the vast regions of South Chile. There was fundamental confidence in martial might. It was a rank that could speak of solo missions. Support would inevitably be delayed. Huguang, where Desolate Sect's main sect was located, was too far. The Huangbo family expedition force had to handle it. The city is splendid. He took charge of Zuzhu in South Chile. 5 days had passed since separating from Radiant Demon First Team Blue Rank seniors. He went around showing the Desolate Sect token to government office magistrates. It was to ask about suspicious characters. They said there were Blood Flame sect members roaming the city saying they feared nothing in the world. It was the prestige of the 13 evil sects. T-note changing 13 heavens to 13 evil sects for convenience. He heard that even when soldiers came out to beat down the evil sect members, they escaped with swift body techniques. Or they would conversely threaten by spewing energy waves. As their sect power gradually grew, the blood demons acted more arrogantly. Just look at how they carried out their business ignoring the Namgang family in Huiju. They said the attitude of keeping evil sect-specific discipline was changing to indulgence. The days Beck Mirio had estimated gradually decreased. It was an urgent situation. Zhong Yunshin stood before what was said to be the city's largest pleasure house. The multicolored lights of lanterns hung above and below the main gate were brilliant. If not the one said to be here. He erased his thoughts for now. This city, Zuzhu, was large. The martial world knowledge of the warriors guarding the gate seemed useful. They recognized Desolate Sect's character Huang. Huang? That Huang. So young? The 5 fellows were flustered. Zhong Yunshin paid no attention and pushed the gate wide open. Clunk! The quite classical wooden door panels opened to both sides. An orange interior was revealed. They said the first floor of such a massive pleasure house was where guests socialized. In that moment, many gazes swept over Zhong Yunshin. Energy could be felt in the looks. They were all martial artists. Who is that child? Guang? Is he imitating Desolate Sect? Boy! There are other places for reckless behavior. Even blue-ranked. Boisterous laughter burst out. All sorts of figures were visible through lantern light beyond windows driving away twilight. Zuzhu of South Jili was said to be a city with especially many minor martial families. It was because the Namgang family that influenced all of South Jili was located below. It was orthodox territory. The complexions varied among what seemed to be easily 50 people. They were either flushed with drink or bright with flesh color. Haven't seen someone like that before. Tell us your sect. Women carrying weapons laughed looking at Zhong Yunshin. Their relaxed sitting postures were very leisurely. Now looking, there weren't many courtesans. It seemed martial arts family women were also present. It was being used as a banquet hall. Zuzhu's finest pleasure house, luxuriously decorated, was indeed elegantly splendid. It seemed suitable for Murim men and women to socialize regardless of age. It was the first time since the battle with the Tyrant Sword Sect and Zhongnan Sect. Zhong Yunshin found such a place with many martial artists unfamiliar. Step. He took a step forward. The small footstep that shouldn't have mattered carried a strange power. Something that reached beyond hearing to energy sense drew gazes. He was releasing his momentum. With each step, the surroundings began to be dyed in silence. Desolate Sect blue-ranked master. It was an energy wave that demanded silence even without intent. Those who had been making comments closed their mouths. Massive questions and silent surprise spread. Zhong Yunshin walked straight. His vision caught those standing up one by one from corners. Though all had black hair, he felt it instantly. Day by day, his achievement with the demon-destroying azure unyielding palm was rising. He was becoming extremely sensitive to sinister true qi. A branch is here, he said. He knew from the size of energy waves. 1 blood sword master and 5 blood flame sect members. Like fire ants, branches must be everywhere. Not just you lot. He continued speaking without slowing his steps. The young man who smiled confidently, seemingly quite sure of his martial might, was the blood sword master. He was a young noble without a single scar on his face. He spoke with a smile. So you're that one? Diligently offering tribute brings fortune. I'll take 1 step toward the apostle realm. Zhong Yunshin ignored him and opened his mouth. You must want to kill the owner of the demon-destroying azure unyielding palm. The moment he operated verses mixed with Dharma, refreshing energy drove away the pleasure house's alcohol smell. From his right hand lowered at an angle, precise energy waves began to spread. A subtle blue radiance surrounded his straight cultivation path. It remained purely blue without mixing with the sunset light of surrounding lanterns. UB*ST** road. Chilling momentum exploded from the blood sword master's body. The fingertips that grabbed his sword hilt blurred. He raised a sword draw like blood bursting. The sword's energy waves rushing in an instant were fierce like a storm. It was an achievement worthy of mentioning Blood Flame Sect Apostle once. Zhong Yunshin also struck down with the demon-destroying azure unyielding palm. The moves were clear. A smooth smile formed on the fellow's lips. He seemed intent on cutting the hand aiming for his head. Kung! It wasn't the sound of collision but shattering. The gale of energy force spewed from his sword was crushed as is. Breaking the energy wave completely in half a technique, even shattering the sword. He completely rode down the straight move. The momentary first technique was completed at the fellow's head. Fiok! Zhong Yunshin felt it with his blade hand. It went very deep. The fellow's crown sank with fragments of blue energy force. He fell brushing past the shoulder. His smiling face remained unchanged. There were 4 more Blood Flame Sect members behind him. Had they tried to rush in together? Their faces were hard to describe emotionally. They couldn't charge while standing hesitantly. Their branch leader died in 1 technique. Even martial artists who had jumped up sensing the Blood Flame Sect's unique energy wave briefly kept silent. Relay this. Zhong Yunshin parted his lips. Radiant Demon Wings lightning flash is here. He spoke bluntly while dusting his hand once. His blue sleeve fluttered once. Chapter 60, Great Hero of Desolate Sect, 3. Zuzhu was already large to begin with. There was more vigor than usual. It was because fresh rumors had spread. A young master from Desolate Sect had provoked the Blood Flame Sect. It was a story that anyone couldn't help but be interested in. Not a white-ranked warrior but a blue-ranked master, they said. It was something that added force to how quickly rumors spread. When we sprinkled water, they were indeed Blood Flame Sect members. Their dye was truly flawless. They say he killed a Blood Sword Master in one move. They say a Desolate Sect blue-ranked warrior is a rare master in the world. But even so, various stories flowed. He caused an incident at the pleasure house. Since it was during martial artists' banquet, many had watched. Even to the ears of Zhong Yunshin himself, the subject of the conversations, discussions about him could be heard. But to suddenly draw blood like that. Unless he looked down on us. Does he think the Desolate Sect alone opposes the Blood Flame Sect? It would have been good if we joined forces. They said the martial world had all sorts of characters. There were those who couldn't stand someone making a name for themselves in an incident right before their eyes. They were superhumans carrying mysterious power called martial arts. Many acted as if they were the center of the world. They said small sects trapped in narrow places were like this. Zhong Yunshin was accumulating martial world experience. The battles he had experienced so far were mostly significant ones. Though he had fought battles worthy of promotion to blue rank, his Murim knowledge was narrower than most white ranks. He stayed a day at the inn next to the pleasure house. Though he was quite comfortable with silver coins in his possession, he didn't particularly want to seek sleep at the luxurious pleasure house. He thought if it was the Blood Flame Sect, they would find him wherever he was in Zuzhu now. I wasn't hoping for uninvited guests. Zhong Yunshin looked up across from him while eating. We greet the renowned Desolate Sect warrior. We came wanting to discuss martial arts with you, but is it true you struck down a blood demon in one move? It's our first time seeing someone with Desolate Sect as their sect. It was one woman and two men. All had swords at their waists. Unlike their words, their main interest didn't seem directed at Zhong Yunshin's status. Rather than distant Desolate Sect in Huguang, the nearby Namgung family was the strongest in the Murim for them. No goodwill in their expressions. Was it local Murim territorial behavior? Zhong Yunshin had shattered a Blood Sword Master's head in a place with all sorts of sects and martial families. Eliminating the Blood Flame Sect was great honor for orthodox martial artists. He knew well as it wasn't just once or twice. Since he had committed such acts, it was natural for such people to seek him out. He slowly rose from his seat and made a cupped fist salute. I am Radiant Demon Wings Lightning Flash of Desolate Sect. They had spoken without introducing themselves first. Only after seeing Zhong Yunshin's courtesy did they each introduce themselves. Unfamiliar names came from their mouths. They called themselves Seal Yu of the Yulso Sword family, Zhong Chiol of the Flower Sword Gate, and Quan Chun of the Flying Dragon Martial Hall. Eldest daughter, young sect leader, and top disciple respectively. Zhong Yunshin carefully listened to their status. Inquiring about the Blood Flame Sect at government offices wasn't enough. Martial artists' eyes had to be different. It was natural to observe build, body balance, and gait when seeing an opponent warrior. There would be differences in perspective. They said to praise the opponent if you need something. Not excessively. He recalled the social skills learned from Haiyan Wanchang. It is an honor to meet the heroes of South Shili. Zhong Yunshin slightly bowed his head, elevating them. Flying Dragon Martial Hall's Quan Chun's narrow brow slightly relaxed. A blue-ranked master's greeting with such courteous bearing. All martial artists keep Desolate Sect at a distance? They had to acknowledge at least their prestige and martial arts. The Murim was a world of those who staked their lives on their respective honors. None would dislike receiving courtesy from a warrior of status acknowledged by the world. Quan Chun cleared his throat and opened his mouth. Knowing our original martial arts are greatly lacking, would you consider having a sword discussion with us? A sword discussion, you said? Zhong Yunshin unconsciously asked back. It was having virtual matches while speaking martial arts techniques with the mouth. After trying it several times at the main family, Zhong Yunshin hadn't developed interest. He had lost to Haiyan Wanchang multiple times too. There were no sword techniques he couldn't demonstrate with words. This would be good for matching their mood. He ordered 3 bottles of alcohol and side dishes to set up the gathering. There were largely 3 ways to obtain detailed information in the martial world. The beggar sect called Gaebang, beggar sect, house sect which had people working in all sorts of places like pleasure houses and inns under them, and finally local martial artists. While there were beggars even in Beijing, strangely he hadn't seen them in Zhuzhou. House sect was hard to trust due to multiple entanglements with the blood flame sect. There was no choice but the martial artists who had settled here. Couldn't you offset it with sweep thousand armies horizontal energy wave there? Then releasing forward rotation would add power and speed, so it seems young hero would have nowhere to step. Zhong Yunshin lost continuously. Sword discussion was a war of words that martial artists had given a plausible name to. The side with weaker will to win had to lose, and Zhong Yunshin naturally learned about life in this setting. It felt almost too easy, this entertaining of guests. Would this work on Desolate Sect's lord? If she's in a good mood, perhaps. Were they so pleased to have won even verbally against a Desolate Sect blue-ranked master? The three people's expressions were very bright. Even with repeated drinks it was so. Zhong Yunshin was newly amazed by martial world culture. So this can be enjoyed too. If the Blood Flame sect didn't come today, he had planned to go around asking directly. That seemed unnecessary. It was because the three people, in good spirits from drinking together, told many stories. If young hero hadn't crushed the Blood Swordmaster's crown, we would have. We were the ones who guided those blood demons to the banquet yesterday. Never dreamed they'd be Blood Flame sect members. Seal Yu and Quan Chun said. Seal Yu, said to be the Yulso sword family's successor, was a swordsman with palms full of calluses. Her seemingly hard eye softened each time she won a sword discussion against Zhong Yunshin. Now he understood. These three people had come wanting to make their honor upright. That could happen. They seemed skilled at hiding their energy waves. Especially that Blood Swordmaster. I could only feel his unique momentum right before drawing his sword. Zhong Yunshin calmly covered their faults. This was enough. The three people answered his careful questions in detail. First was where they had met those fellows. Where they had recently seen people hiding their appearance with similar bearing on which paths, what kinds of hushed talks were circulating in their sects about Zhuzhou's Blood Flame sect. The three were rising talents of this city. Their access to information and discernment far surpassed government soldiers. Zhong Yunshin gathered useful stories. Yesterday they had even followed after letting the Blood Flame sect members live. He could easily organize places that needed to be shattered. Meanwhile, the three martial artists were quite drunk. Perhaps because Zhong Yunshin had simply subdued the Blood Flame sect members yesterday. As if there was no one in Zhuzhou who could do anything to them, they didn't even drive away the drunkenness with internal energy. All their faces were red. It may be a somewhat rude question, but Desolate Sect's martial arts, are they all somewhat sloppy like that? Sharing sword discussion does raise questions. Me too. Even if it's just word sparring, I never thought our Yulso sword family's sword techniques would work so well even against Desolate Sect. Now the words were meaningless. The three people's alcohol-scented words couldn't dig into his ears. The remaining time wasn't leisurely. It was when Zhong Yunshin was about to rise from his seat. Sloppy? How could that be? He newly created sword techniques as profound as the 9 sect's secret arts. Right beside them. A clear voice seemed to push away everyone's drunkenness completely. Indeed, powerful yet gentle true qi was carried in the voice. Step. She approached with surprisingly light body-protecting movement. Only now did Zhong Yunshin feel her presence. Even absorbed in drinking and lost in thought, this was no ordinary matter. He turned his head and opened his eyes wide. Great hero sword dragon. The beautiful features and clear eyes were familiar. The feather ornament above her hair flowing like black ebony remained the same. Her sky blue clothes fluttered with a rebound of light body technique. A white pressure sword hung from the waist sash decorated with blue jade. It was said to be the divine sword signifying her status as successor to the Zhongnan sect's leader. Sword dragon Wei Ji Maiwa slightly raised her lips. It was a smile beautiful enough that the three dining companions seemed to lose their senses looking at it. I was coming to participate in the Dragon Phoenix gathering. I came up hearing rising talents were being chased. Her smile deepened as she slowly continued speaking. Since rumors about Radiant Demon Wings lightning flash are rampant in Zhuzhou. You came looking directly? Zhong Yunshin asked, collecting his surprise. Wei Ji Maiwa slightly tilted her white neck down. Her attitude was ambiguous. They say young hero killed a blood sword master in one move. The rumors must have spread faster than my lightness technique. Enough to make it incomprehensible that the blood flame sect stays quiet. They must have schemes. Though happy to meet again, I have no leisure to wait. Because young hero Hyon was captured. Ah. She nodded after a short sigh. I'll help. The Zhongnan sect owes a debt to the two young heroes. Those who speak of Murim romance would likely love this moment. Here was the bearing of a beautiful great hero. He gained an army of thousands in the early evening. Zhong Yunshin didn't refuse. After paying the innkeeper, he left the inn together with Wei Ji Maiwa, leaving behind the three people who were muttering Sword Dragon and a Zhongnan sect with dazed expressions. The flow of pursuit gained rapid momentum. We'll need to track for quite a long time. Will this be all right? Wei Ji Maiwa slightly twisted her body as if showing her appearance. One sword and a small travel pack on her back. Very simple. Indeed worthy of being called a Nine Sects disciple. Zhong Yunshin shook his head. We might not need to take long. Asterisk. The Murim was vast. The size of the Central Plains was the world of martial arts. It was endlessly expansive. There was a reason why the strategies of mere copycat imitators, which were not even ingenious, worked against the opposing force. The Blood Flame sect was a force that couldn't plant spies. They said one becomes a fanatic cultist the moment they accept blood techniques. It was the realm of sorcery. That's why they helplessly lost in information warfare just by being involved with the Blood Flame sect. Now was different. Zhong Yunshin was the one spreading his wings. Kwong! The Eternal Blossom Fist second technique, advancing Thunder's energy wave, exploded at some house's gate. Amidst fragments scattering in all directions like hit by a typhoon, Zhong Yunshin stood with sky blue spirit light suddenly flashing. Kuum! The demon-destroying azure unyielding palm's energy wave stormed through the Blood Flame sect branches in a house. Zhong Yunshin thought while striking down the last guy's head. Heaven's decree perhaps. At this moment his upper dantian precognition was flashing. Like lightning suddenly striking the blue sky. It approached like fate. It seemed like reaction from widening the 100 meetings point through forceful casting of sword song. Perhaps it was because Wei Ji Maiwa, carrying mysterious energy, provided stimulus beside him. This was already the fifth. Every place they entered was a Blood Flame sect branch. For more remain. Information gathered from various government offices and martial artists harmonized with upper dantian precognition. Completely possessed like tracking speed and martial might transform to blue rank. Even Wei Ji Maiwa with deep cultivation couldn't hide her shocked expression. Let's go. Zhong Yunshin glanced at the fallen Blood Sword Master and Blood Flame sect members before stamping the ground. Wei Ji Maiwa had no chance to intervene. Zhong Yunshin's short-distance lightness technique using fate-defying scriptures overlapped true chi was fast enough to rival her, but the demon-destroying azure unyielding palm was beyond that. It displayed might reaching invincibility against the Blood Flame sect. Just don't meet an apostle. He recalled the Blood Flame sect's seventh apostle who would have grudges against him. Simultaneously, heaven's energy passing through his crown annoyingly whispered that there was no need to worry today. Whether that was really so remained to be seen. Sixth. Zhong Yunshin muttered, facing what looked like an ordinary hall. Desolate sect warriors don't mind government office eyes. It was bound to be noticeable chaos. It was truly enormous commotion. A desolate sect blue-ranked warrior rushed through Zuzhu together with a beautiful master of mysterious age. At the end of bold actions, completely shattered Blood Flame sect branches were revealed to all under heaven. Victims withered from true chi extraction and corpses with bright red hair. Crazy, they said. Desolate sect, desolate sect. Isn't that simply a monster? Watch your words. That's a great hero. They said Zuzhu had many martial gates. People who came out wondering what was happening followed one by one. The gathering crowd grew larger and larger.